How we doing, boys and girls? It's Nick again. So I found a real good video that recaps everything about the Idaho murders. So anybody that needs to be caught up, you can watch this video and you'll be totally caught up. You'll know everything, all the details, and that way when I post more videos you will know what I'm talking about and you can follow along. So without further ado, let's do it.
Moscow is known as the heart of the arts due to the various festivals that take place there throughout the year, no doubt championed also by the University of Idaho, situated on the west side of town. The population of Moscow is rather small, only 25,000 people. Those fine folk are joined by 10,000 students.
So 25,000 people live there and 10,000 of them are students.
To attend the University of Idaho, the largest university in the state, making Moscow a college town, home of the Vandals. And also home to 4 students who were attending the University of Idaho in November 2022. Madison Mogan, Kaylee Goncalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle.
Okay, those were the 4 people that were stabbed to death.
Madison Maddie Mogan was 21 years of age, from Coeur d'Alene. She was born in May 2001 in Eugene, Oregon, growing
Very pretty.
up in Idaho. She was known as very funny, a hard worker, and was excited to be attending the University of Idaho. There she would make the dean's list, which is, getting academically recognized by the big dogs. She would make the dean's list every semester. She had been dating a fellow student named Jake for almost a year as 2022 closed out, and she was excited to be soon graduating with her degree in marketing. Kaylee Goncalves was also 21 years of age, from Rathdrum, Idaho. Really, again, part of the greater Coeur d'Alene area. She was born in Concord, California, the middle of 5 children. Much like Madison, her family moved to Idaho when she was still quite young, and it was actually in middle school that her and Madison began a lifelong friendship. They were inseparable even as they both transitioned to university life, going to the same.
I mean, if they met in high school and then they were in college, I wouldn't consider that lifelong, but they were good friends, yeah.
University together and living in the same house. She was athletic, she was social, and she loved adventure. She was studying to become an elementary school teacher. Ethan Chapin was 20 years of age, of Conway, Washington. Ethan was in fact a triplet, 2 boys and a girl, and he was very close with his siblings. They would play basketball together, soccer, they would run cross country, and in fact, all 3 of them would go to the...
Real quick, shout out to ThatChapter. This guy does a great job. Like and subscribe to him, and like and subscribe to me too on my new channel. So every like, every subscribe helps me out. I really appreciate it.
University of Idaho. Ethan himself was majoring in recreation, sport, and tourism management, and he was in a relationship with, finally, Xana Kernodle. Xana was 20 years of age, of Post Falls, Idaho. Born and raised in that area, she was a talented gymnast as a child, and later became a talented volleyball, track, and soccer player. She was dearly beloved, and majoring in marketing at the University of Idaho, and was a member of the Pi Beta Phi sorority with Madison, and in fact they worked together part-time at a local Greek restaurant. And so that's how they all kind of came to know each other. Maddie and Kaylee, they were, best friends since childhood. Xana and Maddie, they were in the same sorority together and they worked together. And Xana and Ethan were in a relationship.
Alright, you guys got all that so far? Following along? Good.
So as you can see, all 4 victims, they came from roughly the same kind of general area. And
Yeah, they all look like nice people, outgoing, just had a lot going for them. I mean, whoever did this deserves to rot in hell.
They all had a pretty kind of similar background, and all four were murdered in the same house in the early morning hours of November the 13th, 2022. Maddie, Kaylee, and Xana all lived together at 1122 King Road, located on the hilly, southwesterly side of Moscow. It was
There's the house again that I've shown you in some previous videos. They got the 3 stories, and then in the back there's a little bit of woods, and apparently somebody saw a white Hyundai Elantra parked right here in the driveway the morning of the murders.
It was a large house, 3 stories, 6 bed, 3 bath. Now, one thing that is super important to know about the house they were living in is that it was on a hill, as you can see. So,
okay, here's a shot of the back. So what most people are saying is the killer entered from one of those 2 sliding doors. That's what they think. Anyway, I mean, as you could see, it would be easy to get in there without being seen.
So you can enter from the front door, which is on the first floor, the ground floor, or you can enter from a sliding door on the second floor at the back of the house. So Maddie, Kaylee, and Xana lived together along with 2 other students, Dylan and Bethany. It's believed a 6th student had also lived there along with those 5. Their name was still on the lease, but by November 13th they had already moved out. So on November the 13th there was those 5 people: Xana, Kaylee, Maddie, Bethany, and Dylan, along with Ethan, who, as Xana's boyfriend, presumably he would stay over often enough. There was also the dog Murphy in the house too. Bethany and Dylan, their bedroom was on the 1st floor, then Ethan and Xana on the 2nd floor, and then Maddie and Kaylee on the 3rd floor.
And if you want to know about the dog, I heard that the dog was fine and not touched or hurt in any way.
Xana, Ethan, Maddie, and Kaylee were all murdered in that house on the 13th of November. Bethany and Dylan, who were asleep on the 1st floor, said they did not hear a thing. So now let's get into what we know about the events of that day and that weekend. On Saturday, the 12th of November, the victims weren't all hanging around together that evening, but this picture was taken that day. It's kind of eerie, actually.
Wow, so this picture was taken the day they were murdered. That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Because it shows everyone all together. Posted by Kaylee, the caption reads, "One lucky girl to be surrounded by these people every day. Heart." The night of, Ethan and Xana were at a fraternity party just a couple of minutes away, arriving there at approximately 8 p.m. In the meantime, at around 10 p.m., Kaylee and Maddie were picked up from their home and went to the Corner Club, a sports bar in downtown Moscow. So the night went on, all were having, a grand old time. Apparently we haven't heard anything
That bar looked more like a dive bar than a sports bar.
bad that happened. Now, by 1 a.m., Bethany and Dylan, the 2 other roommates, they had returned home to that house on King Road. They themselves had been out that night, separately, not together. But by 1 a.m., they were home. Ethan and Xana were home then by 1:45.
So everybody was home by 1:45
a.m. Kaylee and Maddie left the Corner Club at 1:30 a.m. and were then seen on a Twitch live stream, of all things if you can believe that, by a grub truck parked a couple of minutes away.
This is that security video that I just did a video on yesterday or the day before. So
They regularly live streamed their business, I guess, and both Kaylee and Maddie could be seen.
It's some music, though. It's fun to watch other Have a good night. Bye. Yes. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Thanks. Hi. I would like to, the car, but not.
I feel bad.
But if I have like a free grub tip on my like app.
Oh, yep. So what you want to do is, well, actually.
Now, a hell of a lot has been made about this stream, for obvious reasons, right? Namely, the one being it's the last time any of them were seen on camera alive.
Yes, so I've been asked many questions. Why did you, put the security video, all kinds of crap. It's the last time they were seen alive. Duh.
Also, there's this kind of strange guy on it. This guy in the hoodie.
Yeah, I talked about him too. He acts very strange. After this, go watch my video that I did on the food truck.
A lot has been made about him too. Namely because of how he acts, especially when you consider what happened just a couple of hours later. Weird.
So what you want to do is.
That security footage is like 40 minutes long.
He's dressed, covering himself up. It appeared he had been walking with them, but then he's just standing there not talking to anyone. It looks like he's staring at Kaylee and Maddie. And then he walks right up and stands beside them.
It's important to note he didn't get any food either the whole time. He's just standing there.
So did they know him? And if they did, why did they just ignore him? Was he some kind of weirdo? What's the deal? I mean, probably it's just the usual kind of shit women have to put up with drunk guys and that kind of stuff. But again, when you factor in what's about to happen, anyways, the hooded guy was talking to the bearded guy. Apparently, the bearded guy told the police later, this hoodie guy, he seemed nice, and maybe he just wanted to make sure the two girls got home safe.
That's so weird, though. If you don't know two random girls, why would you be waiting for them and making sure they get home safe? That does not make any sense to me whatsoever. At all.
And after Kaylee and Maddie got into a car, one of them had called an Uber or something like that, the bearded guy points and said they're leaving. Allegedly, the hooded guy said, "What the fuck?" And then,
yeah, he thought he was gonna get some smoochy smooch kissy kiss. That's what I believe.
he took off, absolutely booking it. I mean, it just is super odd to me that if he was trying to, make sure they got home safe, how they never interacted with him, like once over the course of the 10 minutes.
And the girl in the gray, she actually took a picture of the guy without him noticing. Again, watch the video I did.
Of this footage, whether they knew him or not, from what we can see, it seems they didn't say word one. Now, I do have to be crystal clear here, the police do not consider this guy to be a suspect, and as you can imagine, that footage has been ripped apart by all the internet sleuths online, examining each and every pixel, I'm sure at this stage, looking through with different filters, trying to see if there's invisible people in the footage too.
Yeah, some people try and come up with anything just to, get likes on YouTube.
And so then, at 1:55 a.m., Kaylee and Maddie arrived back to that house at 1122 King Road. Between 2:26 a.m. and 2:44 a.m., Kaylee called a fella named Jack, a person she had previously dated, and Jack had been Kaylee's prom date, 6 times. Then, from 2:44 a.m. to 2:52 a.m., Maddie called him 3 times. Now, Kaylee and Maddie, as I said, they're best friends since middle school, and their bedrooms were right next to each other, and it's actually believed that that night they were in the same bed. They were both in Maddie's bed. So Kaylee, maybe she had a couple of beers or whatever, she was trying to talk to an old boyfriend named Jack.
She wanted some smoochy smooch, kissy kissy.
As you can get after a couple of drinks, and he wasn't picking up. Then maybe she thought, well, maybe, he's not answering for me. Get Maddie to call him. He didn't pick up for her either. And then at 2:52 a.m., Kaylee called him one last time. And then that was it.
So they stopped at 2:52, and the lights go out. They turn the lights off at 3 o'clock, a neighbor said.
Between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. that dark November night, a figure approached that house, slowly slid open the back door, going into that dark and quiet house, armed with an extremely sharp and deadly weapon.
They don't know which door the killer used.
And savagely murdered Maddie, Kaylee, Ethan, and Xana. The coroner would say they had likely all been asleep when it happened or when it started, because some did have defensive wounds. All were stabbed to death with a large knife, possibly one quite like this.
Yeah, it was a K-bar knife. That I think that has almost definitely been concerned. But the girls were both in the same bed, you would think one of them would have woken up after he started stabbing the first one. I mean, was there 2 people? I don't know. That's strange to me.
And there were no signs of sexual assault. And the 2 roommates, Dylan and Bethany, who had been home before anyone else, who were on the first floor asleep, they never heard a peep while there was absolute carnage going on the 2 floors right above them.
That's also strange. They didn't hear a peep, and I'm guessing the dog didn't hear anything either, because if the dog would have started barking and going crazy, I'm sure if the dog, heard someone, I mean, maybe it was someone the dog was familiar with. Who knows?
Then, at around midday on the 13th of November, Bethany and Dylan, they woke up. They found Xana and Ethan on the 2nd floor. They found Kaylee and Maddie on the 3rd floor. They as you can imagine, they absolutely freaked out. One of them even fainted. They called their friends first because, as you can imagine, what's going through their head, and then the police arrived.
I don't know how this happened or anything else at this time. Moscow police say they responded to the area around noon Sunday after they had reports that someone was unconscious. When officers arrived, they found the 4 victims dead. The circumstances at this point are unknown. All we knew for several hours was that there was a homicide investigation here, and that was through a vandal alert, a notification sent by U of I to students around 2, asking them to shelter in place. Washington State sent a similar alert to its students a few miles west in Pullman, minus the shelter in place, saying there wasn't a threat to the WSU community. U of I lifted their shelter in place just before 4 p.m., about 2 hours after their first alert, saying Moscow police didn't believe there to be an active threat to the community. There are a lot of questions that still need to be answered with this happening in a neighborhood that's predominantly made up of U of I students. Investigators on scene say they're in for a long night.
This picture has become pretty well known.
Okay, I mean, at first glance, that does look like blood. Obviously, it looks red. It looks like it's dripping down. But it also could be paint. It could be, I mean, until they test it, I'm not going to call it blood.
Of blood literally leaking out of the house on the 2nd floor. It was graphic. Alerts went out and the investigation began. The investigation that, to date, at least, is still ongoing.
Well, there was a lot of blood. It was, It's a very sad scene.
Mabbitt adds that she does not believe the toxicology report on each of the 4 University of Idaho students will be relevant to the manner or cause of death.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they were drinking, and even if they had any drugs in their system, well, why would it matter? They were sleeping and they were stabbed to death. So, who gives a fuck or what's in their system?
Mabbitt has been the county coroner for 16 years in Latah County. She says in that time there have been at least 2 other multiple homicide scenes that she's been involved in. But she says this current homicide investigation is the only one she's been to where there are 4 people at one scene.
It's been said this was a targeted event. One of the victims, or more than one of the victims, was the aim of whoever came into the house and savagely murdered them. It wasn't random. Kaylee's father would later insinuate in an interview that either Maddie or Kaylee may have been the target.
Yeah, I mean, he's insinuating that, but nobody knows at this point who the target was until or unless they actually catch the guy and he tells us who he was after or why. So it's just speculation.
That their injuries were worse, that they were killed differently.
Just because the injuries were worse doesn't mean they were the target. They could have been fighting back more. Who knows? They could have called him a name. Who knows?
The why we still don't know. And the investigation, that followed has released very, very little, and it's been absolutely chock-a-block of mixed messages. First, they said there is a danger to the community.
Based on details at the scene, we believe this was an isolated, targeted attack on our victims. We do not have a suspect at this time, and that individual is still out there.
Now, they could have a suspect, but they're just not going to tell the public because they don't want whoever the suspect is to be alerted that they're onto them,
We cannot say that there's no threat to the community, and as we have stated, please stay vigilant, report any suspicious activity, and be aware of your surroundings at all times.
Then they would walk that back and say there isn't a danger to the community. They would say they'd all been found in their beds, and then they would say they weren't found in their beds, but in their bedroom. Like, the messages from the investigation has been very confusing. In the first few days, there were over 600 tips, 90 interviews, a good few. The family members of the victims, God love them, have come out with information too, saying, this is what the police told them. Now, that's actually become a major factor in this. I think it's frustration on the family's side, frustration at the slow progress of the investigation, because no suspects have been announced, no motives have been announced, no evidence, no leads as to who came in and did this. The police have said pretty much absolutely nothing. No messages left behind, no squat. And that's the most terrifying thing about this, completely. A lot of what I'm going to be saying from here on is speculation and theories. As I said, the police have released almost nothing at all, but some serial killer. I think they're a serial killer now.
All right, I'm not gonna, get into speculation and theories. I mean, he can do it, God bless him, but I don't do that. So that's all the facts of the case up to this point. And if more information comes out, I'm gonna keep updating you. But until then, True Crime King out.